In the 1970s, the Special Air Service and its Marine equivalent, the Special Boat Service, had exchange arrangements with their US counterparts, the US Army Special Forces and the US Navy SEALs. It was during his time on attachment to the SAS that led Colonel Charlie Beckwith, the founder of Delta, to model his new unit on the SAS. Similarly, SEAL Team 6, the US Navy counter-terrorist force set up in the wake of Operation Eagle Claw, drew inspiration from the SPS. But there was another US Special Operations unit created in reaction to the Eagle Claw debacle, set up by a Special Forces colonel with his own experience of working with the SAS. Jerry King, who set up the Special Operations Intelligence Team, which has had multiple names throughout its life, but is mostly known as the Intelligence Support Activity, or just the activity. Following the embarrassing disaster that was Operation Eagle Claw, a key failure was determined to be due to the CIA's inability to provide proper intelligence to the mission planners. Despite copious amounts of it coming in from multiple agencies, including the CIA, none of it appeared to be reliable. The group had plenty of imagery collected by the US Keyhole spy satellites and SR-71 Blackbird spy planes, everything they would need about the external aspects of the embassy. But the rescue team desperately needed people on the ground, inside Iran, to produce the detailed intelligence they would require if they were to know where to find the hostages. The CIA had claimed falsely to have no one in Tehran who could help Delta prepare for what was always going to be a tricky task. But the behaviour of the CIA was worse than even Jerry King and the Joint Task Force members would believe. Shortly before the Delta rescue team set off, the agency revealed a Pakistani chef from the US Embassy, allowed to leave by the Iranian authorities, had fortuitously sat next to a CIA officer and told him precisely where all of the hostages, including the 3 thought to be in the Iranian Foreign Ministry, were being held. The group decided that they had no choice but to put their own people in. The task force spent a long time screening the military for Farsi speakers, but Charlie Beckwith insisted that his own men from Delta were to be sent in. Unfortunately, none were trained in undercover tradecraft, so the man they decided to send in was Dick Meadows, the legendary Vietnam Special Forces soldier and a key player in the 1970s Son Tay raid to rescue US POWs. Dick Meadows was also the Special Forces sergeant sent with Beckwith on attachment to the SAS base in Hereford. Meadows was joined by a former member of the Wartime Office of Strategic Services, Agent Bob Plan. Plan went in and out of Tehran at will, providing confidence that there would be no problem getting in other undercover agents into Iran. 18 years after the rescue attempt, it came to light that the CIA had fabricated the Pakistani cook story and had waited until it was absolutely certain that the rescue mission could be launched in order to protect its own source inside the embassy. It was clear that the military needed its own clandestine military planning intelligence capability. Jerry King was put in charge of the new aggressive, proactive Special Operations Intelligence Unit capable of gathering the information the rescue team would have needed on the ground in Iran. And so, the activity was formed and given its first name, the Field Operations Group. Initially, the activity's role was to collect actionable intelligence and to carry out operational preparation of the battle space. However, FOG's remit changed rapidly. Initially tasked to conduct intelligence operations inside Iran, it then changed to include taking out Iranian military command communications capability and to surreptitiously destroy or render inoperative several radar sites, to tap selected telephone communications and to be prepared to freefall parachute onto key buildings, to mark landing and drop zones and to be prepared to conduct diversion missions, and other assigned missions. Every one of the unit's members must be volunteers and personally vetted by the CO himself. Each is picked on the basis of a specific capability, deemed useful at the time to the unit, using the same technique that came up with the Farsi speakers for the Iran rescue mission. When a new member joins ISA, their names are removed from the listings of service men and women and will only show up on the Army's special roster, a list of members for top secret units like Delta. The activity also actively seeks to recruit women. The early unit commanders concluded quickly that with proper training, women could get away with a lot more than men. However, despite requiring the women to go through the same selection as men, they are vetted differently. One applicant was deemed to be so attractive as to be too distinguishable, despite being extremely technically proficient, and so was recommended for other duties. Once an applicant's skills have met the criteria, an interview team is sent to their location. This team typically includes 2 NCOs and the unit psychologist, where a preliminary psych test is conducted. Based on the interview team's recommendation and a command review, applicants will then be invited to attend assessment and selection. This is a rigorous program designed to place the candidate for assignment to ISA in a sufficient number of different physically and mentally stressful situations to provide assessment data to form the basis for a selection decision by the commander. Unlike other units, no training schedule is posted during selection, designed to keep applicants on their toes, simulating operations. First, volunteers are dropped in the middle of the desert with no food, water or means of communication, and handed a list of near impossible intelligence requests. They were to gather the intel and find a secure way of passing it back to the command post. Once done, they're forced to go without sleep for several days before being dropped off in a strange city in order to carry out a series of complicated operations to test their ingenuity and fieldcraft, such as following a suspect while avoiding other agents who are on their tail. Although a high level of physical fitness is required, it is secondary to mental ability, toughness and determination. If a candidate passes selection, the now volunteer begins a comprehensive course designed to train survival skills, land navigation, parachuting, weapons training, and espionage tradecraft, such as agent running. The activity has been involved in some of the most and least publicised missions. Their first real test came in 1981 for Operation Winter Harvest. General James Lee Dozier had been kidnapped at gunpoint in front of his wife from their apartment in the Italian city of Verona by Italian Red Brigade militants. The militants had a history of executing captives, and so JSOC swung into action, carefully offering a liaison team of Delta and activity members to the Italian authorities. Despite combing the area, the Italian authorities came up with nothing and requested the specialised signals capabilities of the activity to assist in their hunt. The activity flew adapted Hueys with specialist radio intercepting equipment around the region, tracking and locating the militants' radio signals whilst also coordinating with ground elements. After just 6 weeks, Dozier was found, mostly unharmed, and returned to his family. In December 1982, the Soviet-backed FMLN wanted to overthrow the established Duarte government. Army Special Forces and Delta were sent in to train the Salvadorian troops, whilst the activity, acting undercover from a nondescript suburban house, were tasked with tracking the FMLN communications. They employed a Beechcraft King Air 100 to fly over the region, intercepting radio communications and plotting enemy locations for the Salvadorian assault teams to target. The operation was spectacularly successful, revealing a large number of rebel hideouts, arms smuggling routes into El Salvador, and details of a number of planned rebel attacks which prevented at least 15 rebel ambushes. Now with 250 plus operators stationed around the globe, counter-narcotics became an integral mission for the activity. In September 1989, President Bush agreed to send special operations teams into Colombia to hunt down the drug gangs, primarily Pablo Escobar. The activity, now operating under the codename Centrospike, were first on the ground. They were monitoring the narcos' cell phones, radios, and even rudimentary emails, but most importantly, they were the first military unit to employ cell phone tracking using the device's control links, effectively bugging Pablo wherever he was, and accompanied the Colombian anti-narcotics units on interrogations to gather further intelligence. They set up ground intercept sites with Delta in areas Escobar was known to frequent, including Medellin, which in November 1993 led to the tracking of a radio telephone to the Los Olivos district. Just an hour later, a 17-man assault force went in, and Pablo was no more. In September 1993, ahead of Operation Gothic Serpent in Mogadishu, the activity had been sent in to prepare the intelligence picture of the battlespace. The story of Black Hawk Down is well known. However, what's not as well known is the activity's involvement. Running ground agents alongside the CIA, the activity was heavily monitoring Aidid's commander's radio telephones, as well as tactically blocking radios ahead of intercepts, done so that no QRF could be called. The intelligence of the Tier 1 targets meeting in the building which the fateful Black Hawk went down on was provided by the activity. When Delta raided the location, they plastic-cuffed 24 Somalis, including the 2 Tier 1 targets they were looking for. It was only as they were about to load the prisoners into the waiting Humvees that the lucky RPG hit the Black Hawk and disaster ensued. But the activity's intelligence had been accurate. By 2002, prior to the formal invasion of Afghanistan, the activity, now codenamed Grey Fox, were tasked with building up human intelligence networks to map Taliban locations in order to effectively initiate airstrikes. Grey Fox operators served alongside Delta Force and DEVGRU in the mountains of Afghanistan, intercepting enemy communications following airstrikes. Their efforts may have saved more than 100 10th Mountain Division and 101st Airborne Division soldiers fighting near Takagar in Afghanistan's Shahikot Valley during Operation Anaconda. The unit helped spearhead the search for Saddam Hussein and his family after the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. Saddam Hussein was eventually captured during Operation Red Dawn. The activity was also one of the first units to enter Yemen, with the objective of finding, fixing and finishing Al-Qaeda training camps which were now operating there, having been driven from Afghanistan. In April 2003, intelligence provided by activity traffic analysts prevented a bomb attack on the US Embassy in Sana'a, as well as the elimination of the top al-Qaeda operative al-Harithi. Later that year, the intelligence support activity would be renamed the Mission Support Activity. Elements of the activity also assisted in the intelligence collection and analysis operations prior to and during the infamous Operation Neptune Spear. Since its birth, the activity has been a highly successful special missions unit despite having far fewer operators than its peers. The extent of its success was perhaps most vividly shown by the decision of the UK's Directorate of Special Forces in April 2005 to set up its own Human Intelligence and Signals Intelligence Special Forces units, the Special Reconnaissance Regiment. It is still one of the least known special missions units, but continues to be one of the most active. Please like and subscribe for more content, and thank you for watching.